Welcome to Autism Parenting Summit, brought to you by our sponsors. Platinum sponsors. Gut-Brain Axis Therapeutics Incorporated. Gut-Brain Axis Therapeutics is developing microbiota transplant therapy for treating gastrointestinal symptoms and autism symptoms. Hardy Nutritionals. For over 20 years, Hardy Nutritionals has helped people improve mental wellness naturally. Their research-backed micronutrient formulas are trusted by healthcare professionals worldwide to support mood, focus, and emotional resilience without the side effects of traditional treatments. Autism Treatment Center of America. At the Autism Treatment Center of America, we believe every child with autism has unlimited potential. Through our Sunrise program, we guide and empower families to connect, communicate, and inspire growth, transforming lives one joyful moment at a time. Innate Healthcare Institute. At Innate Healthcare Institute, we imagine a future where children with autism have access to the most advanced healing therapies available. Based in Scottsdale, Arizona, our clinic combines regenerative and integrative medicine to help unlock each child's fullest potential. North Florida Stem Cells. North Florida Stem Cells, led by Dr. Eric Weiss, is dedicated to providing innovative stem cell therapy for children with autism, helping families explore new possibilities for improved quality of life. Gold sponsors. Autism Parenting Magazine. Join a thriving community of families and unlock the potential of your child. Autism Learning Network. Join a community that understands. Unlock a wealth of resources. Access expert advice, practical tools, and shared wisdom.
Hello, I'm Sharon Longo, the editor of Autism Parenting Magazine. Welcome to our October 2025 Summit Q&A with Dr. Temple Grandin. Temple is a distinguished professor of animal science at Colorado State University. Many companies around the world use facilities that she has designed for handling livestock, and she's also been instrumental in implementing animal welfare auditing programs used by McDonald's, Wendy's, Whole Foods, and other companies. Temple's appeared on numerous TV shows such as 2020 and Primetime. Her books include Thinking in Pictures, Livestock Handling and Transport, and The Autistic Brain. And her books Animals in Translation and Visual Thinking have been on the New York Times bestseller list. Temple was inducted into the National Women's Hall of Fame in September 2017, was named a Colorado State University Distinguished Professor in 2022, and in 2023 was inducted into the Colorado Authors Hall of Fame. Before we begin, I wanted to mention that some of the questions we are asking today are from the part of my interview with Temple that was cut from the May 2025 summit due to time constraints. The second part of the interview includes new questions that I'm asking today. Welcome, Temple. So we've got Shelley of Tokyo, Japan. She's got several questions from her school. She wants to know, how can we prepare teens to handle strong emotions that arise during puberty? That's her first question.
Okay. Well, one thing is you might just tell them it's normal to have some strong emotions. Also, teens need to start learning working skills. Ideally, I'd like to have a teenager know how to work and have done summer jobs before they graduate from high school. Mm-hmm. I've seen bad situations where a child graduates from college with honors, no work skills. They're not the same skills. Mm-hmm. You know, I think some of these teens get a job. Mm-hmm. And it also gets them out of the family where somebody outside the family is the boss. I think that's also important. That might help with some of these things. Again, plenty of exercise. That also would help with this. But you need to also just tell the teen that, you know, your body's changing and it's normal. Mm-hmm. Maybe to have some strong emotions. That's right. Normal. Right. It's part of, you know, becoming an adult, and then you have to learn how to control those emotions.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay, so her second question, what are strategies we can use to help teens understand the concept of privacy during puberty?
Well, they just have to be taught.
Mhm.
You go in to use the toilet, you shut the door. There's parts of your body that are private.
Right.
You just have to teach them.
Mhm.
I've seen a book. I thought this was good. It had like a target. Okay, immediate family you can hug. There's like different levels of contact with people.
Right.
The clerk in the post office, no, you don't hug them. You make it. There's rules about what parts of the body the clerk in a store could touch, your shoulder, and there's other parts that don't touch. And you
Mhm.
just have to teach it in a very matter-of-fact way,
Right.
calmly with facts.
Mhm.
It's that simple.
Mhm.
That there's certain rules.
Mhm.
You never, of course, expose your privates in public and get in trouble for that. Big,
Mhm.
serious trouble. That has to be explained. That's something you just don't do.
Right. Right.
And you watch people like out at the shopping center, other people don't do that.
Mhm.
That there's rules
Mhm.
on some of this stuff, and there's strict rules. But you need to do it in a very matter-of-fact coaching them. Same
Mhm.
way I would coach somebody to greet a customer nicely.
Mhm. Right.
Public and private behaviors you can do in your room, you do
Mhm.
not do them at the shopping center.
Right. Right. Um, so her third question, how can we help the teen to explore job options in the community?
When what? I couldn't hear you.
How can we help the teen to explore job options in the community?
Well, one of the things we need to do, I think parents and teachers need to just work on opening up back doors.
Mhm.
And mother got me a sewing job when I was 13.
Mhm.
Um, it was just with a seamstress in the community. It had a little home business, and I went in, I sewed dresses, I hemmed them, I took them apart. Let's just work on things in the community. Parents know other people, have the teen go out and help out at the store.
Mhm.
If the teen has art ability, maybe it's a local artist he could work with.
Right.
Just find things in the community. And the opportunity came up for me to go out to my aunt's ranch.
Mhm.
I learned working skills there
Right.
and just find things in the community.
Yeah.
And
So-
one teen that liked movies got, was an usher at the movie theater. They also have to learn to be on time,
Mhm.
and they have to learn to do what the boss tells them to do too. Now, I want to give you some hints on some things that will save jobs.
Mhm.
If there's a task that involves sequence, like closing out the cash register, logging into the cash register,
Right.
write down the sequence of steps in a pilot's checklist format. If you just tell it to them verbally, they don't remember.
Mhm.
Any task that has a sequence of steps, write them down like a pilot's checklist.
Right.
That'll save a lot of jobs. Really, really important thing. Okay,
Mhm.
they come in. Oh, okay, let's say they open up the store. Now, as I talk about this, I see a restaurant that I eat at quite frequently opening up, pushing this grating aside and logging into the cash register.
Right.
And you would just make this, let's say the job was to open the store. You unlock the grating and push it aside, and it has to be pushed all the way back into this thing in the wall it goes into. Then this is how you log in the cash register, and this is a checklist for that. But let's just find jobs in the community.
Mhm.
Instant to legal age of one working in a regular job, and before that they can do informal things.
Mhm.
Help the shopkeeper clean up a store after work. We
Right.
have these things called dollar stores, and they
Uh-huh.
got one person, and they don't have time to unpack the merchandise from the boxes. Well, that 10-year-old could go down there after school, help the lady at the store take the stuff out of the boxes, put it on the shelf, and flatten the boxes.
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
just would do it in the neighborhood.
Right. Right.
And it's totally safe.
Mhm. Yeah, that makes sense.
Let's just find things in the neighborhood that
Mhm.
they can do,
Right.
because in most countries you don't have the paper routes anymore. That
Mhm.
was the old-fashioned childhood job that kids got at 11 or 12. So you could have a
Mhm.
volunteer job at a church. You could
Mhm.
walk dogs for other people, because I
Mhm.
want them working for somebody outside the family.
Right.
Help out at a nursing home. These are things you could just do in the family.
Right. Right.
You can just do in the neighborhood.
Right.
You know, people are often not very creative about just figuring out stuff they can just do in their neighborhood. Mother got me a sewing job. It was something she just found in the neighborhood.
Right. Right. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Okay, so the last question from Shelley is, how can we teach workplace expectations like following instruction?
Well, you do have to learn to follow instructions, sequential instructions. We also need to teach autistic workers how to make their own checklists or sequential tasks. Like, okay, a procedure on a computer. Write down what you do. Write the sequence down and teach the teenager how to do that. Right? Because a lot of these people are going to need an external working memory. So that's something that they can do. You cannot be vague with an autistic person. You know, you say you're rude to customers. That's too vague. You might say, well, you called Mrs. Jones a fat slob yesterday. That's not acceptable. And the next time you see her, you are going to have to apologize. And you tell them exactly what they have to do.
Yeah, I know that makes sense. So we have an LA Irish fan of Los Angeles, California, who asks, what is the most important piece of advice you'd give parents as their children enter their teenage years to prepare them for adulthood?
Well, they need to learn responsibility. This is the time where I'd like to see some jobs outside the home.
Right.
When I was 15, I was cleaning 9 horse stalls, and I made sure every night after I fed the horses that I closed the lid on the grain box and locked it. Because if a horse gets into the grain box, it can die by eating too much grain. That's responsibility. Now, I want to see a lot of these teenagers getting jobs where they're doing work for somebody outside the family on a schedule. I think that's going to help a lot. I've had good feedback from parents to say, oh, he's working in this, he's washing dishes somewhere and actually liking it very much. I remember washing dishes as a teenager. I thought it was kind of fun.
Right.
This is, things with, I think this will help with a lot of the things.
Right.
The bullying and stuff like that. Develop strengths. Developing strengths is really important.
Yeah, I think sometimes teens enjoy working, like doing things that they don't enjoy doing at home. Like you said, washing dishes, they sometimes enjoy that more doing it somewhere else.
Well, yeah, this is why I think it's important to get out where you're doing tasks for people outside the family. Also, I see too many parents baby their kids. I'm seeing kids that have never gone shopping by themselves. They don't know how to do laundry. They don't know how to do anything themselves because the parents have done everything. Like I'm sitting at the book table and the mother will come up with her like almost adult son and she's doing all the talking. He needs to ask to get the book signed.
Right.
That's one of the reasons why I want to get him out of the house and get him working for somebody else. And then you take the kids that have mechanical talent. Maybe there's a mechanic they can work with. There's just all kinds of things.
Right.
I think too often parents get too locked into the label because the grandparents come up to me all the time and they find out they're autistic after the kids get diagnosed. These are the ones where there's no speech delay, what used to be called Asperger's, where there's no speech delay. And those grandparents all had jobs. They learned working skills really young. And then when they do get these kids out working, I'll have parents say, oh, he bloomed, he blossomed, he grew up, he became an adult. So I'd get them out working, just find something in the neighborhood that they can do.
We've got Sherry of Carrollton in the US who says, my daughter is 16 and diagnosed with level 2 autism. Is there anything we need to do as she becomes an adult as far as disability? Do you suggest mainstream as much as possible? She's in an online high school, and the high school that she goes to, they could not accommodate her.
Okay, so she's on an online high school.
Right.
I don't want her just sitting at home all day. She needs to get out and do something. 16, maybe she can get a job of some kind.
Right.
And there's a lot, a lot, even, I don't know if she's verbal or not.
Yeah, it doesn't say if she's verbal or not. She has level
Also,
2.
the other thing that's very important with these individuals, fake work, they know it's fake work. It needs to be a real job where you're doing useful work
Right.
that other people want and appreciate.
Right.
But I don't like her just being at home and never getting out of the house if she's just doing online stuff.
Right. So let's see. Judita of Poland asks, how do you motivate an adult with ASD to work, learn, and act if they're not willing to do so and they feel blocked in everything?
Well, I was a poor student that had no motivation to study until my science teacher showed me that if I studied, I could become a scientist. See, pleasing the family, that wasn't a good enough reason. Becoming a scientist was a good reason. And overnight, I turned my motivation around. Now, I still couldn't do algebra. Never have been able to do algebra. And in my book, Visual Thinking, I'm concerned about all these math requirements holding a lot of good object visualizers back that would be super good with mechanical things. In fact, I talked to a lady recently. She flunked algebra, and she went in the Army, and they gave her the mechanical aptitude test. She aced it, and they put her to work repairing airplanes.
Wow.
And I just talked to her about a week ago. That made my day.
Wow. Yeah.
Because this is someone's very mechanically talented and can't do algebra. I know most schools don't do a mechanical aptitude test.
Right.
Something that I'd be good at. But I want to get, one thing I'm adamant about, no recluses in the room. There's too much nasty stuff today online.
Right.
It's controversial, so I'm not going to go into it. But bad crap, you don't want them in.
Right.
That's why it's so important to get out and be doing things.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And I'm finding too often parents are locked into the label. And they sort of don't think maybe they can do anything. But the recluses in the room have gotten into some very, very bad trouble. Let's just put it that way.
Right. We've got Andrea of Bridgeport in the U.S. asks, what advice would you give to a parent of an adult son with autism and intellectual or developmental disability who has no desire to work or learn a trade without a constant struggle? His only interests are playing video games, watching TV, dining out, and spending time with family and friends.
Okay, so he likes dining out, spending time with family and friends. Now, he might have some mechanical ability because getting adults off of video games, the one thing that's worked has been car mechanics. I'm seeing too many kids today growing up where they've never used a tool.
Right.
Was he good with Legos? I'm seeing too many kids don't graduate from Legos. He might like working on cars.
Right.
And if he's 18, he can work in a shop. That's something where there are some restrictions. Unless you find somebody in the backyard working on a car, which in some neighborhoods you can still find that.
Right.
And he might start finding that that's interesting. So he likes to eat out. Okay, maybe he might like to work in a restaurant and help people have a good experience eating out.
Right.
Okay, that's something he's interested in. He's interested in food. Maybe do some chef work. I don't know what his intellectual disability is.
Right. Right.
Most businesses, if you can read, write, and just do basic arithmetic at the 6th grade level, you could do any job in a restaurant.
Right. Yeah.
See, I don't know what he's capable of. Does he have motor abnormalities where he have, from a motor standpoint, trouble doing the jobs?
Right. Right. Yeah. Oh, and she did continue on to say that he currently works 6 hours a week in a business office of a nonprofit. So he does do some data entry, some shredding, copying, filing, and the goal is to increase his hours and his willingness to want to work. So that's part of it.
Well, then you work to get money,
Mm-hmm.
and you can buy things with money, like
Right.
video games, for example. You can buy that with money. The other thing, he may need to be introduced to the idea, well, the parents have to work to pay the rent, pay the car payment,
Right.
buy groceries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, do you suggest, having him pay any kind of like money towards the groceries or?
Well, that might be a good idea, because if once he's a full-fledged adult, he probably needs to help pay for some of the household expenses. He has to be taught about that. And you have to lay all the bills out, and okay, in order for the lights to stay on, okay, dad has to work this many hours to fill the car up with gas,
Right.
or to pay the electric bill.
Mm-hmm.
You see, make money not abstract. How
Right.
long would you have to do something?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you got a really big car, you might have to work half a shift in a factory to fill that big pickup up.
Right.
You
Right.
see, I'm seeing that. I'm now seeing myself standing at the gas station looking at the meter and going, I'd have to work half a shift at this beef plant. I work
Right.
there just to fill this car up.
Right. Right.
You see, that's making the money real.
Mm-hmm.
See, money shouldn't be abstract. You make money, you can buy things with it.
Right. So we've got Barbara from the US says, I have a 36-year-old son still living with us who doesn't work or even help with household chores. He uses his Asperger's as an excuse. We plan to move a few states north within the next few years, but he's holding us back. We can't just kick him out of the house as he has no survival skills. We wouldn't even consider asking family to take him as they have their own issues. We've tried everything we can think of to motivate him, but nothing works. He's on his computer all night, sleeps during the day. How do we move on with our lives as we are close to retirement?
And this is the problem.
Yeah.
They have to start looking at a group home for him.
Mm-hmm.
Those are getting hard to get into.
Right.
And then is this problem? Is he? You see, I still don't know what his intellect level is.
They said that he has Asperger's, so.
Oh, he has Asperger's. Okay, then I would assume normal intellect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the problem is he's just been allowed all these years to do that.
Right. Right.
Yeah, you see, this is part of the problem.
Mm-hmm.
What does he do on the computer? Maybe there'd be some way to get an interest.
Right.
I don't know what he's doing on the computer. I guess I'm assuming playing video games. See, the problem with video games is they're very, very addictive. And if he's a video game player, I might try to introduce slowly auto mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually been very successful in weaning adults off of video games. And you do it very, very gradually. And the adults have told me that the motors were more interesting than video games.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
And so if he's a video game addict, I introduce him very slowly to working on cars.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that might work.
Right.
See, the problem is he's been allowed to do this for too long.
Yeah.
There were never any demands put on him.
Mm-hmm.
No, this is a real problem, playing video games all night.
Right. Right.
Yeah, but you have to replace it with something else.
Mm-hmm. We've got Diana from Brookline, Massachusetts asks, what is best, having my son in a regular school or in a school that has a well-structured program for kids with ASD?
I always like to prefer mainstreaming as much as possible, but that's not the right thing to do for every kid.
Right, right.
And you have to look at all the pros and cons, and whether or not a school is successful depends so much upon the particular people, how the parents and the teachers get along, where they can work together as a team. Now, overall, I want to see mainstreaming as much as possible.
Right.
But again, I have to have I don't just, you see, that's too top down to say mainstreaming always, separate school always. Things aren't that simple.
Right, right.
And I don't know what the economic situation is. There's a lot of stuff I don't know.
Right.
and I'll probably need a half an hour conversation with them
Mhm.
in order to figure out what's best. The thing you always got to look at is the child improving in the
Mhm.
situation they're in.
Right,
And
right.
if you're in a situation where you're getting no improvement,
Mhm.
then you probably need to change it.
Right.
I had a friend that had a fourth grader in a very, very good school, but the teacher hated her fourth grader. I know that's wrong. They changed schools.
Wow. Okay, so Trudy of England asks, how can the education system be changed to benefit autistic people?
Let's see, again, this is way too vague,
Mhm.
way too top down. One of the things is autistics have uneven skills.
Mhm.
And you might have a math kid that has trouble with reading. The visual thinkers like me can't do higher math.
Right.
Don't screen me out of a factory maintenance job because making me do algebra.
Mhm.
We need to get a lot more oriented on getting the kid into the workplace. And what is the ultimate way to judge your education? Where is a student 10 years after they graduate from high school? I had graduated from college, I had my master's, and I was doing my first big projects that was shown in the HBO movie.
Mhm.
I can think of a lot of places I don't want them to be, but I think we need to be looking a lot more as to where are they going to end up. I'd like them to end up in a good career
Mhm.
that they like, somewhere I want them to end up, maybe get married, maybe have a family.
Mhm.
I can think of places I don't want them to end up.
Mhm.
And we need to look, and I can't emphasize enough learning work skills when they're in high school. That needs to be part of school. And one program that's been successful is Project Search, and that started out in hospitals, and they had long internships
Mhm.
before they went into their jobs,
Right.
doing jobs like setting up surgical trays in hospitals. Then they
Mhm.
ran out of hospital jobs, and then they did it in other industries. But a long period with a lot of coaching, a lot of job coaching. There's a program in Denver called TACT. They're teaching trades to autistic adults. So they have an auto mechanics class, but at the same time, they also have a job coach there. So they learn things like being on time, hygiene issues. You can't be a dirty slob. You're going to have to clean it up. You can be eccentric, but you can't be a dirty slob.
Right.
And then they have contracts with the car dealerships, the placeman car dealerships to fix cars. And there's a job coach there for another 2 months. These programs have been very successful.
Right. Right.
But we've got to be learning. I want them learning these working skills before they graduate from college, high school.
Right.
So that's something I'm going to be adamant about. Because too often the kid gets to be 22 or whatever it is, and they jump off the service cliff. And there's no more services. That's a total disaster.
Right. Right. Alicia of Switzerland says, I was inspired by your story to look at my own life, and it actually was why I went to get a diagnosis at age 30. I work with families at times that ask me how to help their children to be excited to learn, as homework is always a struggle. What would you say is the best advice for a parent of an autistic child to help support them in creating a good relationship with learning?
Well, develop the strength.
Mhm.
Now, what my science teacher did with me when I was a teenager, I was a bored student that didn't want to study. I always got fascinated with optical illusions. And that was shown in the HBO movie, the room where one person looked bigger than the other illusion. And he
Wow.
challenged me. I want you to figure out how to build that illusion, not just tell me how to do it. He gave me
Yeah.
interesting projects to do in optical illusions.
Mhm.
And that became motivated me to study so I could become a scientist.
Mhm.
Give
Wow.
the kid interesting projects to do, challenging projects to do. If the guy's a math kid, their math kid, well, that little third grader might need that algebra book that I would use as a doorstop. For that kid, it's a door. And build on the strengths. Build up on the strengths.
Mhm.
If they're artistic, let's do lots of different kinds of art.
Mhm.
And I'm going to really push them for the visual thinkers like me that are horrible at math, push the skilled trades, because when everybody else gets laid off, the mechanics and the skilled trades, they're going to be laughing all the way to the bank.
Mhm. Right.
Those jobs are not going to get replaced by artificial intelligence.
Right, right, yeah. So we've got Vicky from Canada who asks, how can I help my child with school when in a grade 5 level, but mentally at a grade 2 level with a sense of feeling of no purpose and little to no support?
You know, there's some situations where the parents in school just doesn't work.
Mhm.
I don't know if this is this situation. You know, they might say in the West, you have to switch horses
Right.
because it's just not going to work. See, I don't know if that's this kind of situation. And we always we got to start looking at what they can do. I read a really positive book about very severe disability, very severe, where it was a real big effort for this child to learn how to work a controller on a wheelchair,
Mhm.
you know, and be able to steer the wheelchair.
Right.
And they were very happy when they learned how to do it. It took a lot of work to learn that one thing.
Mhm.
But that was big progress. Now he could steer the wheelchair.
Mhm.
And it took a lot of effort to do that. You know, we need to look, they figured that's something he could learn to do.
Mhm.
And we need to be looking at it like, what are the things they can learn to do?
Right, right,
The other thing that can be helpful when parents get really discouraged, I'd recommend joining a parent support group.
right.
And if possible, one that has live meetings.
Mhm.
Yes, it's fine to do it online, but I think also, I think some of these parents need to just get together in live meetings and be
Right.
able to share things, parent support groups.
Mhm.
And just, I'd recommend this to all these parents. Find a good parent support groups and don't get involved in weird medical stuff. There's a lot of weird medical garbage out there.
Mhm.
And most of that stuff doesn't work.
Right.
But oftentimes, another parent can tell you where a service is. I'll just give you an example. I was doing a talk in Minnesota, and we were talking about, okay, how do we get a kid ready for a trip on a plane? Well, some airports have a practice. They let you practice going through security and things like that.
Wow.
Uh, well, and another mom said, oh, the Minneapolis airport lets you do that.
Mhm.
Okay, well, that's good to know.
Right.
Or they're trying to find a job for their kid. Another parent says, well, maybe he could work at my grocery store.
Mhm.
And you just make good networking connections to really
Right.
good stuff.
Right.
So I would recommend joining a support group,
Mhm.
even if it is online. This might be helpful. Also, go to a conference if you can.
Mhm.
And I think joining support groups, talking to other parents, they can find out resources you may have in your neighborhood. There's no way I would know. But networking with other parents, I think it'd be good to do some live meetings with other parents because
Right.
people can often feel really isolated.
Mhm.
You know, I oftentimes will have somebody who lives out in the country. So we live out in the country, there's no resources. Well, there's a lot more things than you think. You have farms out there.
Mhm.
And so you get the kids that are older kids
Mhm.
working on equipment. Um, there's a lot more stuff than you would think.
Mhm.
People are just not seeing it.
Right. Right.
And the other thing is, let's say you're doing something new, like you're going to go on a plane for the first time, no surprises.
Mhm.
If it's not possible to do a trip to the airport, then you need to look at all the videos.
Mhm.
You know, videos of planes taking off and all, you know, how you go through the airport. And
Mhm.
so it's not a surprise
Right.
for
Right.
new things. And the one place that will let them veg out on a video game is on a plane.
Mhm.
I don't want any trouble on a plane. So
Right.
it's one of the few places they can do it, all, you know, as much as they want. Lots of
Yeah.
times other parents can tell you tips about some school that they might not know about or some other resource that might be available. Well, joining a support group, I think that's a good thing to do.
We have Amy of Vincennes, Indiana, and she asks, do you have any advice on helping autistic children with restricted eating? My daughter is 5, and we have really struggled with this since she was an infant. She seems to have a phobia around food and is essentially on a liquid diet at this point. While she has some functional language, she's not yet able to communicate what it is that holds her back from eating. For background, she's in speech and OT where they work on feeding therapy. She goes to a developmental preschool. And they've also been to the dentist and the doctor to check her teeth and gastro issues to see if that might be the problem.
One of my biggest concerns with these kids on such a limited diet is nutritional deficiencies. There have been cases of scurvy, which is vitamin C deficiency, that have happened recently. And so if you have a child or an adult eating an extremely limited diet, the first thing you want to do is take a multiple vitamin, just a standard multiple vitamin, to avoid the old-fashioned vitamin deficiency diseases that we used to study in home economics class that we're not studying, and they are nasty. And the ones for the B vitamins, B as in Bravo, to use aviation alphabet, are really awful.
Tweety of Kingston, Jamaica asks, what is the best way to mitigate against health issues in a child with sensory eating issues who only eats 2 foods from one food group, carbohydrates?
Well, you might have a protein deficiency. You better look into that if all they eat is carbs.
Right, right.
But this is a real concern. You have a kid eating 2 foods, and then if you got a protein deficiency, I mean, if they like chicken nuggets, no, you're not going to have a protein deficiency. But the first thing is I want to make sure we don't have a vitamin deficiency, because some of these individuals have come down with those old vitamin deficiency diseases. Last year, I found a case of scurvy, and they had absolutely no idea what was wrong. And I looked up the kid's diet, and it was half the minimum daily requirement for vitamin C. And then I looked up the symptoms of scurvy, and he's got scurvy.
Wow.
And they put him on the supplements, and it cleared right up. That was last year.
Right, right.
You think something, and
you wouldn't have
very, very limited diet. He was drinking some sugar drink that had a little bit of vitamin C, but he was not getting anywhere near enough vitamin C.
Right.
You see, and the way those minimum daily requirements were determined originally was what was the minimum amount of the vitamin required to prevent these diseases. Oh yeah, A is really bad. You go blind.
Right.
Yeah, that one's real bad.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of doctors don't.
They don't recognize it.
Yeah, they don't recognize
it to the doctor, and he didn't recognize the symptoms.
Right.
And then I just went on the. We were driving from the airport. It was a mom of autistic, and I looked up the symptoms of scurvy, and I was reading them to her in the car. And she said, "Yeah, that's what he's got. C supplements cleared it up."
Right, right. Yeah, it's so simple and basic.
But that's basic. This is a very basic thing. If a child or adult is on an exceedingly limited diet, I'm just taking a regular multiple vitamin. Nothing weird, just a regular multiple vitamin to prevent these deficiencies. That'd be the first thing to do. And then if the kid won't take the pill, then get a liquid form of it. But this has happened. You don't want to go blind. You don't want to. Oh, the B ones are terrible.
Right.
Let's just give that multiple vitamin as an insurance policy. Okay, now I want to talk about how do we get them eating more things. Get them involved in food prep. Get them involved in that. And out in the kitchen, we can play with food. We can mush our hands around in it, because a lot of this is sensory. And that's involve food prep with something you think you might eat, and get them playing in it. That can sometimes really help to broaden their palate, is to get them involved making the food. In the kitchen, we can play with food. In the dining room, we have to have manners. But in the kitchen, we can do all kinds of messy play with food while we're making food. And sometimes that's really helpful. So those are my 2 things to say on the food issues. I mean, this comes up all the time.
Right.
There's 2 issues I want to work on here. I want to make sure they don't get the old-fashioned vitamin deficiency diseases. And you can prevent those with a multiple vitamin. And then get the kid in. These issues are sensory. They don't like the sensory aspect of the food. And while we're prepping the food and making the food, let them play in it. Sometimes that helps to broaden them, get them to try some things. Maybe give them a reward for trying a little bit of something. I think it's okay for a kid to have a few things they just despise. And for me, it's raw egg white. I am going to throw up if you make me eat it. So have a few things. I get 5 things you absolutely despise. I won't make you eat those. But other stuff, you're going to have to. Raw egg white is vomit department for me. Just tell you, I don't even want to look at it. I want my eggs over hard or scrambled.
Right, right. Yeah. But for some things, it's good for kids to at least try or,
Yeah, but we got to work, but the thing, in the last year, I've talked to people that have come down with these old-fashioned vitamin deficiency diseases.
Right.
And you don't want to be deficient in vitamin A, you can go blind from that.
Right.
It's really serious.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so under the topic of anxiety, we have Isabel of Portugal who asks, how do you perceive and deal with anxiety?
I had terrible anxiety, started at puberty. When the hormones hit, the panic attacks started. It was bad. And as I went through my 20s, it got worse and worse and worse. Now, one of the things that did help it was hard exercise. I think one of the first things we need to do is make sure the kid's getting enough exercise. And you got to do something a bit more vigorous than just walking. Walking's really good, but you need to do a bout of hard exercise, like set an exercise bike really stiff, and 5 minutes, you got to really crank it, and it takes effort. Now, the other issue comes up is medication. In my book, Thinking in Pictures, right here, my old book, I discuss, and this is still accurate, even though it is old. The drugs haven't changed very much. I started taking antidepressant medication in my early 30s. My health was being ripped apart with anxiety. My fear circuits were on overdrive because there was something wrong with my nervous system. And I'd take a low dose of an old-fashioned antidepressant. And the big mistake made with antidepressants is too high a dose. It's starter dose or less. Starter dose, whatever the starter dose is, you can look it up, or less. I've had 100 parents tell me he did great or she did great on a low dose, could not sleep, agitation on a higher dose. The label doses are too high. I can't emphasize that enough. And what the drug did for me, this is an old-fashioned analogy. If you know what a carburetor is on an old-fashioned car, it has an idle screw. And when you turn the idle screw, you can stop the engine from racing. It was like readjusting the idle screw on an old-fashioned carburetor. I know that's a really ancient old analogy, but it's still one of the best ones. And I don't know if I'd be here today if I hadn't gone on the meds. I'm still on them. I made sure I have them in both my bags when I travel. And I resisted taking the medication. I had read some articles about it in the late 70s. I didn't like the idea of chemistry. But when meds work, I've seen them work like magic. I also want to emphasize way too many drugs are given to little kids. Way too many drugs, too many different combinations of powerful drugs. It's just atrocious. Some of the stuff is given out to little kids. But on the other hand, older adolescents and adults, there's a place for a little bit of help from pharmacology. I can't be against it because I think it saved me. And my whole description of my experience is in this book that I wrote like 27 years ago. Even though it's old, it's still accurate. And I'd recommend reading that. I'm not telling you just to sell books. That's my experience, my lived-in experience.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's still relevant today.
Oh yeah, and the meds are, Prozac. I mean, I've heard, okay, starter dose worked really well, double the dose was just horrible. What they needed to do was to go back to the lower dose. The doses for anxiety are lower than the doses for depression. But the medication worked like magic for me. And the colitis attacks I had where everything I was eating was going through me. That's why I was eating yogurt and jello that was shown in the movie. The colitis cleared up within 2 weeks.
Wow.
Not about 90%. I still have a little bit of it. About 90% it cleared up very quickly.
Wow. Yeah, no, I mean, stomach issues always come about with anxiety.
Well, I still have some stomach issues, but they are drastically reduced.
Right.
because my nervous system isn't in a constant state of fear all the time.
Right. Right. That's amazing. So we also have Pia of London, UK asks, what is the best way to help an autistic 14-year-old whose autism and severe anxiety have prevented her from leaving our house for over a year? And it says a senior psychiatrist has suggested medication, but she does not want to take it, and there's a very long wait for therapy.
I would basically give choices. We're going to get out of the house, but I'll give you some choices of what we're going to do. We can go shopping at this store or that store. We have a choice of stores, maybe a choice of activities she could try. We can go bowling or roller skating. I'm just making up things where there is a choice. When I was 15, I was extremely anxious, and the opportunity came up for me to go to my aunt's ranch out in Arizona, which would involve a plane ride, and Anne would be with me on that plane ride. And I was scared to go. Mother gave me a choice. Not going wasn't one of the choices. The choice was I could come home in a week if I hated it, or I could decide to stay all summer.
Right.
I loved it, and I stayed all summer.
Mm-hmm.
It was one of the best things that ever happened. I talked to another mom. Her kid was afraid to go to a sleepaway camp. He went, and he loved it.
Right.
But give some choice. So there's some control, even if something simple as we shop this supermarket or that supermarket. You can pick the supermarket that we go to.
Right.
But we are going shopping, and you're coming with me.
Right. Yeah, they need.
Give some choice.
Right. Right. Because if you don't even set foot out of the house or have that opportunity, you don't know what you're missing. So.
Well, this is a problem. And the other thing, I just talked to Mom just the other day, and I always recommend getting kids jobs early. I call it paper route substitutes. We no longer have paper routes, but we can do paper route substitute. You walk Mr. Jones's dog every day. You have a volunteer job at the church. I just talked to a mom where her teenage boy goes over to the nursing home, and he's the bingo man. He arranges game night. They love him. And this is just the other day, I talked to this mom, and this is something that was just done in the neighborhood. Walk over to the nursing home, and he's the activity manager now for it. And he's, I don't know, 14 years old. And this was just done in the neighborhood. You know, these kind of opportunities are everywhere, and he's loving it, and they love him.
That's great.
Because we need to be getting this work experience early. We have to, you know, granddads come up to me all the time, grandmoms come up to me, find out they're autistic. They're all employed in good jobs. They did paper routes at age 11. So we have to find substitutes for paper routes. Like you volunteer at the church and you're going to shake hands with people and pass out programs. Another thing that was done in our generation, and it was done with Bill Gates, it's now official, he's autistic, is kids when they were 9 had to be hosts and hostesses at parents' parties. That's something that was done in our generation. It was done with Bill Gates and with me. Also, we both sold stuff for charity, going door to door. Taught you how to talk to people. That costs nothing to implement. These are things we both did, and I'm realizing just how important they were. But it's never too late to start. Let's say we just take the kid, okay, we're going shopping and you're coming with me. You can pick the store. So there's some control there.
Yeah. And get them socializing somehow.
They got to get out. They got to get out. And I was terrified to go to my aunt's ranch. Not going wasn't an option.
Right.
And I got out there and I loved it.
See,
but I was given the choice that if I hated it, I could come home in a week.
And probably knowing that kind of settled your.
That's right.
anxiety.
That made it a lot better.
You
had my mother had a really good idea of just how hard to push. Push, but give choices.
That's great. Okay, so we have some miscellaneous questions. Michael of Boston says, as I am a high functioning person on the spectrum, I have some personal reservations about the strict behavioral approach to helping people on the spectrum with ABA. I understand this question may require a complex answer, but would you speak even briefly about your feelings about ABA?
Well, ABA was originally developed as a little kids program. That's what it was originally developed for. To try to get little kids, and I'm talking 3-year-old, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds ready for school. And some of the advocates out there were subjected to some very harsh ABA. Forced into some field, well, that's just terrible. That's totally terrible. You know, a good teacher knows how to engage the kids. So if the kid's lining up toys, we're going to turn that into a turn-taking game of lining up the toys. Now, with somebody like Michael here, by the time he's 7 or 8 years old, all the ABA stuff should be phased out. He's too old for that, too old and too capable to be using that approach anymore. But when I was like 8, 9 years old, if I threw a fit at school, there was a penalty. No television for one night. Very, very consistently applied, either home or at school. The teacher would call my mother. I'd get home and she'd go, Mrs. Deach called today. You were kicking and screaming in the classroom. You know the rule, no television tonight. And they'd take it away for just one night. Yeah, and there's a lot of the ABA now is getting a lot more flexible. The thing I always ask parents, especially with little kids, are you making progress? For a little 3-year-old, it's going to be speech, ability to take turns in all different kinds of games, to wait and take turns, and skills, eating with utensils, putting on your clothes, just basic skills. That's what I want out of a little kids program. Those are the outcomes. But there's a kid should enjoy therapy. If the kid hates therapy, something's wrong. I want to get progress, and the therapy's fun.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, they shouldn't hate what they're doing. So then we also have Kim of Grantsville, Utah, who asks, how do you teach a child and the adults in their life that it's okay to be different and to develop the strengths that those differences bring?
Yeah, and also what I did, I was thinking back when I was in my 20s, I wanted to prove I wasn't stupid. And there's a scene in the movie where I get the editor's card. Again, this goes back to selling stuff for charity and the dinner party hostess I had to be. I went up to the editor and got his card because I knew if I wrote for that magazine, it would help my career. I started writing for that magazine. I became livestock editor.
Wow.
And I made sure I was a good livestock editor. I wanted to prove that I could do it. Then when I started designing cattle handling facilities, I made myself good at it. Back when I was a teenager with a little sign painting business, I had learned to make signs that clients want. Couldn't just do my own thing. Those are working skills. And it's okay to be different, but develop a skill that other people respect you for. And I very quickly got respected. When I covered a speech at the Arizona Cattle Feeders meeting, I summarized it accurately. And I got respect for that.
Right.
I may be weird, but my work wasn't weird.
No, not at all.
Okay to be different.
Right.
But
we're all different.
Let's develop the strength area. And you've got some individuals with their visualizers like me, the things they're going to be good at, high-end skilled trades. I worked with autistic people that owned big machine shops, couldn't do higher math. Then you got your mathematical autistic that goes off and studies physics. Then you've got another one that's a word memory. They can be really good working in stores, controlling inventory and stocking and ordering supplies and things like that, and selling specialized things like printers or cars, where they help you get the right printer or the right car.
Right. Yeah. Especially if they know a lot about it.
They know everything. Maybe there's 30 cars out in the lot, and they know every feature on them.
Right. Yeah. And that's how
one dealership. Well, there are 10-year-olds out there selling cars. He was allowed to demo in park only. Had to be in park. And he could demo the electronics.
Wow.
And then when they got a grown up for the demo ride, he'd be in the back seat telling them all about the electronics. And he was selling tons of cars in his family dealership at 10 years old. Obviously, wasn't allowed to drive them. In park only, he demoed them.
Yeah, that's helpful.
But that's just something Some people just did.
So we have TJ of Littleborough who asks, how do you explain to your child that they may be autistic?
Well, I'll explain it. There's some pretty famous people out there autistic, like Einstein, no
Mm-hmm.
speech till age 3, like Bill Gates.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can go look up those people, some pretty important people.
Right. Temple
So
Grandin.
don't let it hold you back.
Right, right. Yeah. I mean, is there anything else that they should say, like, just to give them a little bit of help or hope if they're
Well,
experiencing
I think knowing that there's some pretty famous role models out there
it? Mm-hmm.
help to give them hope. It depends how young the kid is. The real little kid, I'd probably just talk about Einstein and Bill Gates, and that Bill Gates invented the personal, the Microsoft program.
Right.
And most kids know what that is.
Mm-hmm.
Einstein, physics, one of the greatest scientists, in physics.
Mm-hmm. Right, right. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Um, so then we also have Sarah from San Diego, California. She asks, how can we help an autistic young person feel happy and fulfilled when most of the people around them see and think differently?
Find friends through shared interests.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That's where I have friends. When I was in high school, bullied and teased, I had riding horses as a shared interest.
Mm-hmm.
Model rocket club. The bullies were not neither one of those activities.
Right, right.
Friends through shared interests.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is get really good at something that's a skill that other people want and appreciate. So I did early on, livestock editor and designing facilities
Right, right.
for
Yeah,
cattle.
right. Yeah.
People respect ability.
Absolutely.
Also, I got my work done.
Mm-hmm.
There were deadlines in that magazine,
Right.
15th of each month. I
Mm-hmm.
had to get a certain amount of articles turned in. There were certain meetings I had to cover, and then other stuff I was free to do features.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right. Wow. No, that's great. So we have Rebecca of Berwyn Heights, Maryland. She asks, why is autism more prevalent in males than females, and how does it differ in how we should respond to that?
Well, it tends to be more obvious in males. Women tend to present in not such an obvious manner. They're better at acting normal, and this gets into the whole issue of masking. There's a few things you're going to have to conform on. Hygiene's one of them.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to conform on that.
Right.
Yep, I dress a bit eccentric. I remember one time years ago, a lady wanted to wear see-through plastic dresses to work and gaudy, neon colored, like safety vest colored jewelry. And I said to her, tone it down. How about a black dress, a plain black dress, and you can put a Dayglow safety vest colored belt on it, maybe some earrings.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, tone it down a bit.
Right, right.
And then you can have like these earrings and accessories, necklaces and belts that you accessorize with.
Right.
You express yourself on a normal dress.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I recommended that would be suitable for work.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
so you can do some things. Yeah, eccentric is fine, but there's a point where, pink hair is fine. I was on a flight the other day with a flight attendant. He had the cutest braid that went down his back, all the way to his waist. He was a
Right.
flight attendant. Okay, fine.
Right.
That's kind of unique.
Yeah.
It's something I just saw the other day. I thought it was pretty cool.
Right. Just getting back to the question, why is it that autism seems to be more prevalent in males than females?
Well, I think it's more obvious. Also, there's a thing in males. The corpus callosum, the two halves of the brain don't communicate quite as well. Like if a guy has a stroke
Mm-hmm.
on the language area, they'll have a hard time getting the language back. A girl can have knocked out in a stroke and can sometimes get it back. The brain's less lateralized. I don't know if that's anything to do with it, but it might.
Right.
And autism is strongly genetic,
Mm-hmm.
especially the milder ones, what they used to call Asperger's, where it's socially awkward with no speech delay.
Right. Right.
And the problem with autism, you have such a wide range. And
Mm-hmm.
I did a talk with an interview with NBC News, and you can look it up. And I think the two big areas where we need research is on how to desensitize sensory issues. And there is a paper called Environmental Enrichment is an Effective Treatment for Autism. That's evidence-based. It's a desensitization method. And we need to look at this regressive group separately. My speech came in a few slow words at a time. But then you got the kids, 3-year-olds, 3-year-old, and he loses all his language. That group needs to be looked at. Possible untreated Lyme disease, pandas, which is a strep infection, maybe some other kind of environmental insult. But this regressive group that loses it, that needs to be studied separately.
Right, yeah. Okay, so we have Sianda of Johannesburg, South Africa, who asks, what are the best therapy and supplements to use for increasing memory and concentration for an autistic child, and for an autistic child who's at the primary level at school?
6 years, that in the US, it'd be about 12 years old. First of all, I'm always going to ask, is this kid getting enough exercise? And he needs to have every day some vigorous exercise. I do 120 old lady push-ups every night. I hate every single one of them, but they help me to sleep. See, this burst of hard exercise can be really helpful. Mother would say, go outside and run the energy out of you. These are things that you can do. Let's start off on, they certainly have memory and concentration for stuff they're interested in, like video games. So let's take it and broaden it. All right, let's say this video game has a car in it. Okay, let's learn more about how cars work. How do self-driving cars work? You know, and try to broaden it and bring it back to the real world. You know, where you could go into career fixing cars, selling cars. Those are things that you could do. Let's try to find something he's interested in and broaden that fixation. Because when I was a kid, I would draw the same horse head over and over again. Mother said, let's draw the stable. That's an example of broadening that fixation.
And as far as like supplements, are there any types
Well, there's a lot of people out there selling a lot of stuff. Some individuals are helped by some of the diets. Like right, as an old lady now, I've had to go on gluten-free. I don't have to be that strict. And that's helped with the heartburn. But there's some individuals taking the dairy out, taking the wheat out. Then there's other bad ingredients that sneak into stuff. Barley malt, that's a dreadful ingredient. It gets into candy. Lindt bonbons make me sick. And they're really good candies, but they have barley malt in them. And so some of that might be helpful, but there's a lot of crazy stuff out there. You might try, you know, gluten-free and dairy-free, cutting a bunch of sugar out of the diet. And I don't drink any diet drinks. Aspartame, I don't touch that stuff. I got fat on that. I don't touch any of that crap. And I don't, no sugar from drinks. I drink water, plain coffee, and iced tea, no sugar, lemon. Yeah, no sugar from drinks. You got to cut a bunch of sugar out. Exercise, let's cut out a bunch of the sugar. Let's try some of the simple things first. Now, if you try a supplement, try one thing at a time. If you start a new school, at the same time you start a supplement, you don't know what worked.
So Shelley of Andrews in the US asks, as a woman with autism who was diagnosed at a comparatively young age, did you notice, or maybe are you still noticing, a significant effect on your experience of the autism related to hormonal changes that girls and women typically go through? Do you think that the use of hormone therapy can have a positive or beneficial effect on a woman's experience with autism?
All I know with me is that in puberty, which started late for me, so I was 14, when the hormones hit at puberty, that's when the anxiety attacks started. And the hormones hit at puberty. And you know, for somebody else, that may not be the case. See, this is where there's just so much variability. And when in my menstrual cycle, when estrogen would be the highest in the menstrual cycle, the anxiety was the worst. All I want to say is that's just my experience. Also, let's make sure we're getting enough vigorous exercise. Now, I didn't start doing 120 push-ups right away. I also do 100 strokes. When I first started doing those laying on the floor, I couldn't get my legs off the floor. It's going to take time to work up to that. like about 3 months. You don't want
Right.
to have a heart attack doing this.
Right. Right.
Vigorous exercise and the walking, yes, walking's really good for you. I find for me that's not sufficient.
Right. Right. So something more than that. All right. Then we have Crystal from Baltimore, Maryland, who asks, how do you support a child with high support needs and a complex medical history? My son has a pediatric eating disorder, low muscle tone, and intellectual disorders. I don't know how to help him, and I'm not sure about his providers.
All right, let's make sure he has a way to communicate. So I'm going to assume that he's probably nonverbal too, non-speaking. That this individual, I don't know the age here, has a way to communicate. Even if it's a simple picture board that they can point to.
Right.
Because not being able to express your needs, very frustrating. I can remember before I could speak, and one of the issues that caused a lot of behavior problems in a person with maybe this history, hidden painful medical issues they cannot tell you about. Their stomach hurts. They're constipated. They have a yeast infection. They have an ear infection. You know, some real medical or urinary tract infection, some real medical thing wrong with them. And I talk about this in meetings, and I had one mom come up, just last year and said, oh, my son had an advanced urinary tract infection. These are treatable, legitimate medical problems that cause pain, and they can't tell you about it. That's one of the first things you want to rule out if you've got a behavior problem. And having a way to communicate he's hungry, he's thirsty, just basic needs. It can be simple picture board, be something very simple, but some way to communicate. Now, some of your nonverbals can learn to type independently. And there's some very good books. I like Tito Mukhopadhyay, How Can I Talk If My Lips Don't Move? I don't know how to spell Mukhopadhyay. How Can I Talk If My Lips Don't Move? Then there's the New York Times bestseller, The Reason I Jump. And that book has a sequel. The sequel's better because Noki's older. Get the sequel, The Reason I Jump. If you have an individual that's not a 3-year-old, I'm talking about older kid or an adult that's non-speaking, those are some things that could be helpful. And then, of course, the eating disorder, again, a multiple vitamin. I don't want to come down with scurvy or something worse because of vitamin deficiencies. Get them involved in food preparation, but they've got to have a way to communicate. The other thing is, if he throws a big fit at the train station, that's probably sensory overload. If it's in a really noisy environment like that.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And a lot of times with the eating disorders, that they're, as long as the child's growing, they don't seem to be too concerned. But like you said, they could get scurvy or something else,
Well, I've seen them come down with this, and you certainly don't have a vitamin A deficiency and go blind.
Right.
And the B vitamin stuff's real bad. You don't want those things. They're terrible. And that's why when I studied home ec, I'll be 78 in August. We studied the old-fashioned vitamin deficiency diseases, and we would learn them all. And we learned that the minimum daily requirement was based on preventing those old-fashioned diseases.
Right.
Well, we don't want those back again.
Yeah.
Anyway, any kind of an eating disorder, just take a multiple vitamin, a plain, ordinary multiple vitamin, nothing weird.
Right.
I want to rule out scurvy or something worse.
Right.
And then your hidden painful medical issues that they can't tell you about.
Right. Yeah, just to rule everything out.
Yeah.
So now we have Trixie of Breckenridge, Texas, who asks, what do you recommend to parents to help their child get better sleep?
Well, exercise is one of the things again. And the other thing is have some quiet routines before bedtime. Do some quiet things. Let's get the screens off because the screen brightness tends to keep them up. Consistent bedtime can help. And then what was done with me, I was allowed to have my reading light on. And if I wanted to stay up all night reading, I could. But I had to stay on the bed and I had to stay quiet. I was
Right.
only allowed to leave if I wanted to use the restroom, to use the toilet. But that, and as long as I was ready for school pickup in the morning,
Mhm.
that's how they dealt with it. Running around the house, no, had to stay on the bed.
Any other words of advice for our parents to
We've
just help
talked about a lot of things. I want to get kids started into the work world
them?
early. We have
Right.
got to do chores for young kids,
Hmm.
and they need to clean up their room, but they also need to help with stuff that helps the whole family, like doing dishes, things
Right.
that setting the dining room table, clearing up the dining room table, things that for the whole family. And then the party host and hostesses was a big thing in our generation, 8, 9 years old. They put on their good clothes, they greet the guests, shake
Mhm.
hands with them, take their coat, serve the snacks. We never served alcohol, never, ever.
Right.
But we
Right.
served snacks, and we had learned how to greet the guests. Um,
Mhm.
Also, selling stuff for charity, where you
Mhm.
had to go up and knock on doors and talk to people. And
Right.
then 11 years old, we're going to have to find paper route substitutes.
Mhm.
Since we don't have most, well, I don't know about other countries, but the US and Canada don't have paper routes anymore. But things where you're walking the next door neighbor's dog, you're doing a task on a schedule
Mhm.
with somebody outside the family, a church volunteer job, helping out at the local old folks home, helping out one of the dealers at the local farmers market, help them set up their tent and run their booth. You need to just find stuff in the neighborhood.
Mhm. Yeah.
We need to be doing more of those kinds of things.
Right. Summertime, they could help in the garden or help.
Exactly. Yeah, and help with somebody else's garden.
Right. Right.
They've got to start working for somebody outside the family. So you help the old lady across the street with her garden. You help her
Mhm.
clean her house.
Right. Right.
This is stuff you just find in a neighborhood.
Yeah, and it gives them so many different opportunities across the board for social skills, communication,
That's right.
functioning, for everything. So,
Now I want to avoid the chaotic multitasking stuff. A crazy busy McDonald's lunch takeout window. Let's
um,
avoid that. There's
right.
lots of other good jobs. Ice cream shops have actually worked pretty well because it's quieter. Movie theaters,
Mhm.
that's been successful. There's lots of working in with plants in a plant nursery. That's worked out well. But if I have summer jobs, shelving groceries, just
Mhm.
learning work skills, and ideally they should learn them before they graduate from high school.
Right.
Because
Right.
otherwise, a sudden transition,
Mhm.
that doesn't work. You want a gradual transition. But let's say you've got a college student that has never worked. Well, then let's get them working summer internships that are career relevant.
Mhm.
Maybe take an extra year to finish college, but get some working experience while they're
Right.
in college. So we don't have a sudden transition.
Mhm.
That's something that doesn't work. You want
Right.
a gradual transition. And I see too many parents overprotecting their kid, teenagers, fully verbal, never gone shopping by themselves. This is ridiculous. I
Mhm.
was shopping by myself at 8 years old,
Right.
and I was given a little allowance of 50 cents
Mhm.
and things like little kites and comics and candies and little ice cream novelties. Those were considered allowance items. Mother never bought comics. So
Okay.
my 50 cents, I could buy 5 Superman comics.
Mhm.
But if I wanted a 69-cent toy airplane, I had to save for 2 weeks. I
Right.
was doing that at 9 years old,
Mhm.
learning about saving money. That's just what was done in my generation. And I think this is one of the reasons why we've got so many grandparents that come up, discover they're autistic. Now, where that diagnosis really helps that grandparent is with relationships. It's
Mhm.
almost a relief. It's tremendously helpful with relationships. But I think too often the parents baby the kids too much, and it's not helping on the job front.
Right.
Another thing on the job front, teach your kid how to make pilots checklists. So
Mhm.
if they have to clean the ice cream machine, write down take apart steps,
Right. Right.
cleaning steps, write them down like a pilot's checklist, reassembly steps, because I cannot remember long strings of verbal instruction with
Mhm.
sequence. I
Right.
got to write it down. So we need to teach them how to say, I just need to make a checklist. Let me just write it down. So that's something you might have to do every day that has
Mhm.
a sequence. But then if you're working in a store, well, one day you're going to be restocking the canned soup aisle. Another
Mhm.
day you'll be stocking the cereal aisle. So you might let me just write down the 3 aisles you want me to stock today.
Mhm. Right.
You know, I kind of need an external working memory if stuff has sequence.
Mhm.
Also learning to drive. It's going to take a whole lot longer.
Mhm. Right.
I did 200 miles on dirt roads before I did any traffic. Let's
Right.
start out open fields, big
Mhm.
empty open parking lots.
Right.
And you might be there 20 minutes a day for a month before you go out in traffic.
Right.
Work into it slowly. Learn
Right.
how to operate the vehicle where you
Mhm.
don't have to think about operating the vehicle in a totally safe place. Drivers that I've seen them shove them into it too quickly. No, we
Yeah.
work into it very slowly. It might be 20 minutes a day
Right.
for 2 weeks to a month in the
Mhm.
big open parking lot.
Right.
Then we'll go out in a side street or back street somewhere
Yeah.
and start learning the signs and gradually working into it. After I got my license, I was an entire year before I did freeway, before I did those big complicated ramps.
Yeah.
We work into it slowly,
Mhm.
and more gradually going from totally safe place to a back road, maybe a suburban housing development in the daytime when nobody's there.
Mhm.
You gradually work into it.
Right. Right. Yeah. Transitions can be difficult. And so,
Gradual transitions are best.
right.
You want them to be gradual.
Just want to thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us and just answer these questions with all your wonderful answers and advice. So thank you so much.
All right, well, great to talk to you. I hope that's going to help some of the parents and teachers out there.
Oh, I'm sure it will. Thank you.
And for my books, I have my most basic book is The Way I See It. I have a book that's really good for early parents. It's called Autism and Education. It's a little small book. It's really good for parents with young children newly diagnosed. It's called Autism and Education. It's got kind of a little gray and black and white cover on it. I've got Autism in Adolescence that has a lot of sensory stuff and medical stuff in it. And then I have my visual thinking book. This has lots of career stuff. Another book that might be helpful is The Autistic Brain. I have my own brain scans in that. A lot of people have found this book helpful, especially on the job front and older kids. Thinking in Pictures, my autobiography. I discuss my problems with anxiety, also my own experiences getting into the workplace.
Right, right.
The Way I See It book, that's my most basic book. Covers a lot of stuff, a lot of practical things that people can do.
Right.
And I have a website, templegrandin.com. Templegrandin.com. That's my autism website. And I have grandin.com. That's my livestock website. And books are on that.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's available on Amazon. Most of it's available also in ebooks and audiobooks.